Every day that goes by, Marcel Reed continues to receive more disrespect from the national media.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On the show today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be joined by Cain from Locked On Vols. Great conversation. We recorded this yesterday, so I'll patch it on at the tail end. We talk a lot about the basketball game coming up on Saturday. We also get into some football-related topics. Obviously, we don't play Tennessee this year, but fun stuff to discuss. Baseball, I know there's a lot of folks. We're going to get into baseball. We are going to talk about, starting next week, baseball is a top priority here. It's just, there's been a lot going on this week with different shows, different guests, and stuff like that. So we will get to baseball. I promise. Big series this weekend. We'll get to it next week, no doubt. A hot topic here at Locked On Aggies, as you ever dares know, has been my take on Marcel Reed. And my take on Marcel Reed has been quite strong that I think he is going to have a special season this year. I think that every time I see a list and it's, top 25 quarterbacks in college football, top SEC quarterbacks ranked. I've seen one with the Locked On host made a list, and I disagreed with. Marcel Reed is not receiving enough respect, and he's going to be able to prove people wrong. But in the SEC, seeing names like Jackson Arnold and then the kid over at Ole Miss that we haven't even really seen play a snap, why are these guys ranked ahead of Marcel Reed, who proved success last year? And I've said this, yes, we all agree, we all understand that Marcel Reed has some development to do. He has to improve in some areas of his game, as does everyone has to get better at everything in life every single day. So, yes, Marcel Reed has things to improve on. But I think right now, Marcel Reed couldn't improve a lick. Nothing, right? Doesn't get an ounce better. And you don't even account for the new weapons he has. I still think he can lead Texas A&M to an 8-4 season. I think he's that good. His legs on top of the running backs that you have, and those guys count in my analogy here because they were on the team last year. But your wide receivers are really good this year. And I think that, once again, those of you ever dares that listen to Locked On Aggies on a day-to-day basis know my opinion on how this wide receiver room is going to help elevate Marcel Reed's game. He's a guy that, yes, decision-making and accuracy have to be a conversation between him and Colin Klein this offseason. It's definitely something that he's going to work on. It's something that is going to be a big-time offseason. I've talked about it. I think that the development of Marcel Reed is going to be the most important part of the offseason for the Aggies. If Marcel Reed and Colin Klein are able to dial in this development and get him to that next level, you can't not be bought into this Texas A&M team. You just can't not be. So, I almost in a weird way kind of like it that he's getting so much disrespect. I don't think people understand how good of a player he can be. It really frustrates me how you can't look at the prototypical quarterback that has succeeded in college football league, which is a guy that can run and a guy that can pass. And Marcel Reed probably is going to be one of the best rushing quarterbacks in college football next year. Definitely is going to be. And then if he continues to get a little bit better, just a hair better as a passer, like him to become elite. If he becomes an elite passer on top of his legs, you can go ahead and hand Texas A&M a spot in the playoff. That's how good this team would be if that's the reality. But, sometimes I like it when players aren't receiving all of the preseason hype in the world, because I think it might add fuel to the fire. Marcel Reed, he's a motivated guy. I don't think he's someone that is reading articles going, yeah, rank me 11th in the SEC quarterback wise. I love it. I think that he's working on his craft and he's not too worried about what media personalities are saying on Twitter and articles. I don't think he really gives a crap. But I do think that, I mean, it just adds fuel to the fire a little bit. I mean, seriously, anybody in life that is, anytime you're counting, you're people don't believe in you, people don't think you're going to succeed. It makes it even sweeter when you do. I mean, that's just the reality. So, I think that Marcel Reed is going to really show folks this year. And I mean, I think that those weapons, you have to look, what makes a quarterback good is the balance across the entire offense. And you have an offensive line that returns all 5 of its starters, and they're going to be really, really good. It's going to be a dominant offensive line next year. You have a running back room that I think is probably the best in the SEC between all the players that you have. You then have a tight end room where you're bringing a guy in Amari Niblack, who I think is going to be a great, skilled pass-catching tight end that came over from Texas. Then in your wide receiver room, you bring in a KC Concepcion. You bring in some of these other players, Jonah Wilson and Mario Craver. You bring in Jerome Miles. All of these additions will take this wide receiver room from here to here. He's going to have so much help around him. That's the reality, is Marcel Reed is going to have help around him. I don't know how much help he had last year. I mean, I think that Noah Thomas was a great player, but I mean, I think it kind of ended there. I mean, obviously Bussy, but he was young and he didn't play a ton of snaps. Bussy's going to be great for you next year. But I mean, I don't know how much help when it came to the wide receiver room you had, and even tight end room. I mean, I think Watson was fine, but I think that Niblack's going to be an upgrade. So I am excited I am so confident that Marcel Reed's going to prove people wrong. I mean, I'm just so confident. I think that, every time that I think there's a lot of, sometimes bias overtakes what's been proven. And like, I think that, seeing there's a lot of bias with Jackson Arnold and with, I mean, even Arch Manning and with the kid over at Ole Miss, there's a lot of bias that are putting these guys above Marcel Reed. I mean, could they outplay him? Sure they could. Yes, they could. But you can't look at this right now and say to yourself, Marcel Reed has more experience. He's won football games and he still has room to get better without getting any better, just with the additions of this, his coaching staff made to his offense. I think he can win 8 football games right now without improving anything, just as he is as a passer and as a runner. Right now, I think he can win 8 football games. And I don't think the same can be said about a lot of these quarterbacks. And that's why I'm a big believer in Marcel Reed. He's receiving too much disrespect, too much hate from the national media. Marcel Reed is going to prove people wrong. I'm going to say this one more time. I'm going to look right into the camera. Listen to this. Texas A&M fans, Texas fans, I know there's a lot of y'all in here quite often. Listen. Marcel Reed is going to have a special season for the Aggies this year. He's going to have a good year. He's going to develop. He's a player that is going to be special. He has the work ethic. He has the skill set. He has everything needed to be a star, and now he has the weapons around him and a great coaching staff. It's going to be a special season for Marcel Reed. We're going to be joined by Eric Cain of Locked On Vols coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into same-game parlays. I love using FanDuel's betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com to shoot your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, and of course, the Locked On Podcast Network. We're going to be joined by Eric Cain of Locked On Vols right now here on Locked On Aggies.
Apologies if you put this to lead off your show for tomorrow. Big showdown coming out, man. And again, there's big games in college basketball, all season long, a couple games a week and everything. But I feel like this has kind of flown under the radar a little bit. Tennessee had a bye week in the midweek this week. Got a chance to rest up and everything. I know the Aggies are coming off a loss, but kind of what's the mindset for Texas A&M going into this game? A huge one against Tennessee.
I think Texas A&M is a basketball team that, at times, myself included, folks aren't bought into them yet. I think a lot of people look at them and they're like, well, they're good, but are they really good? And I think they're pretty darn good. And it's interesting because it's very Tennessee-esque basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say Tennessee's a hair better offensively, but defensive, A&M's, I believe in KenPom, they're 5 right now. Tennessee's 1. So it's going to be a defensive showdown in Reed Arena on Saturday between two teams that are great on that end of the floor, two teams that struggle to score, but you've also got guys in Chaz Lanier and in Wade Taylor who are real microwave scorers. They can give you points at any point in the game. So I'd say the vibes are high in College Station right now for this basketball game. It's going to be a real – this could decide who plays on Friday, who plays on Thursday in Nashville. So it's a big game.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, this is when you look at the SEC standings, I think A&M is tied with, was it Missouri for the 4th, overall seed right now. Tennessee's behind. And so this is a monster game. And I mean, there's these games being played on Wednesday and Thursday. They're going to mean something in the SEC tournament this year, whereas in years past, it wouldn't. I mean, this is like Big East basketball. This is the best conference in basketball this year. It's been a whole lot of fun. For Tennessee, again, I think it was good that Tennessee had the bye week in the mid. It's weird to say bye week because it's technically not a bye week. I'm such a football brain mindset. But no midweek game, and that's baseball term. No midweek game. And I think it was good to kind of sit back, rest, regroup a little bit. I mean, this team offensively just digs themselves in holes, man. I mean, they did it against Missouri a couple weeks ago. They did it against Kentucky, nearly came back and won it. They did it against Vanderbilt in a huge way on Saturday, down 16 in the first half. And so eventually, I mean, that you're going to get got, right? And Tennessee is the best defensive team in the country, but you can't allow 44 points and a half. You can't allow, a team like Kentucky to just shoot whatever they want from 3 and, hardly even be contested. And that's what's frustrating about this Tennessee team. So I think the break, came at a really, really good time. You look at KenPom. KenPom has Tennessee actually winning this game by 2, 54% chance of victory. That kind of surprised me a little bit. I know at the time of this recording, the FanDuel line's not out there yet, but if Texas A&M is a home underdog, are you kidding me? I mean, I feel like I'm not saying, and we'll just see what that line is, but that would be surprising to me given, Tennessee struggles on the road. Tennessee struggles at A&M the last couple of years. I think Tennessee was down by like 20 there last year at halftime or whatever. I'm interested to see what that line's going to look like.
I'd be really shocked if Tennessee went in as a favorite.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, this game, it could be first to 40 wins. I mean, this thing, for those Vol fans that have not watched A&M play, you're not going to want to watch this game. It's going to, or you can just turn it on in the last 10 minutes because it's going to be like 32-31 with like 8 minutes left in the game. It's going to be ugly. A&M, they muck games up. They want to win a game in the 50s and 60s. They do not want to win a game in the 80s, 90s, 100s. So, I mean, if I had to predict this line, I would say it's like 1.5 in A&M's favor. It'd be my guess right now. I think it's going to be a hard game to find value betting-wise just because I think it is so – it's why KenPom's got it split down the middle. Evan Maya's got it split down the middle analytically. This is a basketball game for me. I think it's going to be the stars for Igor is Chaz Lanier, is Zakai Ziegler. Are these guys going to show up on the Tennessee side? On the A&M side, you've got Wade Taylor, who's been around for a long time, good player, but he's inefficient at times. Then you've also got another guy in Zurich Phelps who's played some good basketball for you this year. It's going to be which stars from these two teams show up and play well on Saturday is going to win the game, which is how it goes a lot of the times. But when you're two teams that most of your scoring is driven from a few guys, it really matters.
Yeah, Chaz Lanier's been MIA on a couple of occasions, but overall he's had a fine season. One of the leading scorers when you look around the country and whatnot, certainly the SEC. Zakai Ziegler does so much for this basketball team, so good on the defensive end, leading the SEC in assists as usual. Igor Milicic is just so puzzling for me because overall he's had a good year. He's rebounded the basketball really, really well for the Vols. I mean, that's like an NBA dude in terms of his skill set. And there's been some games where he's just looked like that guy. And then there's other games where he's like lacked confidence to shoot the basketball and be a true force on the offensive end. I think Igor could be a real X factor in this game. I think Chaz is obviously the biggest X factor on the team for Tennessee. John Rothstein had a really good stat the other day on Sunday. Tennessee 16-1 on the year when Chaz Lanier scores over 16 points, 4-5 when he doesn't get to the 16-point threshold. So if A&M can slow Chaz Lanier down, I think A&M's got an excellent opportunity to win this game. I'd look for Igor to kind of step up and kind of have one of those games like he did against like he did against Missouri a couple weeks ago. How does Tennessee stop Wade Taylor, man? He's going to shoot a bazillion threes. How is Tennessee going to stop him and try to keep him in check?
Wade Taylor, I think, is one of the most interesting basketball players in this conference because he is a guy that he's going to have a game. One or two things is going to happen on Saturday. He's going to go 3 of 16 from the field and score 9 points, or he's going to go 11 of 16 from the field and score 27 points because he's going to shoot it over 15 times, regardless of what happens. There is no such thing as, well, you missed your first couple, let's dial it back in. Nope, it is let it fly until you don't anymore. Texas A&M's offense they are the CEO of the possession ends here when the ball gets in the hands of Wade Taylor and Zurich Phelps. So, how you stop them, the problem is you're going to have little guard on little guard in College Station on Saturday with 5'9" Ziegler going against 6 foot Wade Taylor, and I say 6 foot Wade Taylor.
Yeah. Program 6 foot.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so, normally you can get out there and really defend Wade Taylor well because of his height. Ziegler doesn't have that advantage. He has, I think, the quickest hands in all college basketball. Yeah. But when it comes to getting up a jump shot, how much can he defend a little bit taller Wade Taylor? So Ziegler's got to be out on him. Taylor scares you more as a shooter than a driver, in my opinion. So I would get in on him, get in on his body when he's out there past 3-point line. And if he gets around, you hope for help is what I would that's the way I would defend him personally.
As Wade Taylor showed A&M fans and as Zakai Ziegler showed Tennessee fans, really both these guys showed college basketball fans, little guys can pack a punch in a big way. I mean, Ziegler is the dude for Tennessee. Again, Chaz Lanier was brought here to be the shooter, to be the scorer. And there's complementary pieces, but Zakai Ziegler certainly is the guy. So if you want to beat Tennessee, you gotta have Zakai Ziegler have a bad game, not just point wise, but force him to turn the basketball over. Because if you're struggling on one end, sometimes your defense will lapse on the other end. Usually that doesn't happen to Zakai Ziegler because he's so defensive first, but certainly it can, for sure. Last thing, kind of looking big picture wise in the SEC, not necessarily Tennessee and Texas A&M. Again, we referenced the SEC standings a moment ago. Auburn there, Florida, Alabama, Missouri and A&M tied at 9-4 in the conference. Tennessee and Ole Miss then at 8-5. It's like anybody can beat anybody on any given night. You got Auburn over Arkansas. Last night or in the midweek, Kentucky took down Vanderbilt. You've got Florida doing what it does. I mean, you're seeing teams like Alabama score 90 points and lose basketball games. What do you make of this conference, man? And how critical will the SEC tournament be in resulting to seeding for March?
The SEC tournament is going to be a lot of fun. I'll be down. You be down there, Eric, for that one?
Probably not. No, probably not.
I go down there with my buddies. I mean, I'll be down there for work, but it's Nashville, so it's a little work and play for me and my buddies. But I think we've seen time and time again, the SEC tournament has more of an effect on those bubble teams like your Arkansas, Vandy, some of those teams that are going to be fighting for their life than it does your Texas A&M, Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, those teams. So it's going to be fun, and you want to win. Nobody's going to go there. John Calipari is now at Arkansas, and his famous thing was, I don't care about it. I think it's fun for the fan bases. It's a fun tournament. It's a good time. And I think the best city in the continental United States. You need to find a way to compete in that thing. But I don't think those top 6, 7, 8 teams are going to be too worried about the outcome of it. But this conference, I mean, I'd like to hear your answer to this, but Eric, but I think I think you could have 7 SEC teams make the Sweet 16.
I mean, I'll believe that when I see it, simply because March Madness is just, it's madness, right? I mean, it's you have Auburn of all teams, and they had the Final Four,
19.
2019, 19 or whatever, and you won't take that away. Bruce Pearl's a great coach. But the majority of fans are like, Bruce this, Bruce that, and maybe it's because you're here in Knoxville, but Bruce Pearl's made it past the first round one time as the head coach at Auburn. It's kind of hard to believe. I know that one time was very, very good, but this tournament is just so wild. It's all about who you're playing, the individual matchup, who's hot, who's not, all that and more. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Are seven teams talented enough to make the Sweet 16? Absolutely. How many of those teams actually get out of the first weekend just because it is madness? We'll see. You got Alabama. I mean, again, this league is just crazy. You got Alabama scoring 98 points the other night and losing.
Yeah.
98 points on the road and losing. Like, when does that happen? And to your point about the SEC tournament, like, the fact that they still play the championship game on Sunday is just, it's so stupid. Tennessee won the tournament a couple years ago, and it didn't help Tennessee out at all. I think they went into the NCAA tournament as a 3 seed. They didn't move up a seed line because they have that thing done and ready to roll Saturday night after the ACC championship is done. Okay, like the fact that the SEC tournament has not moved, has not adjusted, like what are we doing here, right? Yeah. You're right. It helps those bubble teams. It helps those teams fighting for your life. It does not help the big dogs at the top that are playing on Saturday and Sunday in the SEC tournament. So hopefully, we're talking football expansion and college football expansion and realignment. I mean, why haven't we changed the SEC tournament, moved it all up a day? It's baffling to me that that's not happened.
I agree with you. It doesn't make any sense because I mean you're right. They've already made the bracket before that championship game on Sunday. That's so evident. Same thing. I mean, Auburn won it last year and they didn't really get bumped from it. It's an every year occurrence. Every team that wins the SEC championship, especially when it's like the 4 or 5 seed wins it, they should drop a seed line and they don't. So. I mean, it's fun to hang a banner, but I mean, there's some programs in the SEC that don't care as much about an SEC championship banner and some that do. And I just think that it's a tournament that is more fun than anything, but you got to play. Like, it doesn't have the same value as the SEC football championship. We all know that, but it's still a good time, and it helps those teams on that bubble, like we talked about.
We're gonna expand this out to about 15 or 16 minutes of that school.
Yeah,
because that kind of leads me into another question. I'm going to go over to football here, but first, before we shift over, give me a final score prediction: Tennessee and Texas A&M on Saturday. Maybe not a final score prediction, but who are you going to take?
I'll do this. I think A&M is going to win an ugly basketball game. I think it's going to be in the 60s, and I think A&M is going to win by less than 5 points. Would be my prediction right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me. I mean, Tennessee can win any game it plays, right? But Tennessee also does not play well on the road. And like it just doesn't. And the fact that Tennessee's kind of gotten in a habit here of putting itself in a deep hole. And are you good enough to climb out of that hole against an A&M that's, Ken Palm has them as the 5th ranked defense in the country?
Yeah.
Probably not. You get down by double digits in the first half, you're probably not climbing out of that hole. So Tennessee cannot afford offensively to put itself in that position. Right now, I'll take the home team to win because I truly believe it's going to be a toss-up. We'll see what that line is when FanDuel comes out. Ken Palm, again, has Tennessee winning by 2 points. I think Ken Palm had it at 56-54, which is just 64-62. 64-62 Tennessee. So I'm going to take the home team right now just because I don't trust Tennessee on the road, but I do think this is, like you say, going to be low scoring. Yeah. It's going to be a muck-it-up type of basketball game, and Tennessee loves that type of basketball game. Yeah. The fans don't, but Tennessee is comfortable playing in that type of basketball game. Throwing this out at you, but you brought something up there that kind of made me think about all the talk going on and the college football playoff expansion talks. If we are going to a 14 or 16 playoffs, in the next couple of years, 2026 and beyond, I'm sure you saw it. They've talked about what are you going to do with the tournament, with the championship games, right? Because you won't necessarily need those to get automatic qualifiers. Would you be in favor of ditching the SEC championship game, but because you still need that money, right? It's a play-in game, okay? Who's going to get that 4th automatic qualifier from the SEC? This year, Alabama and South Carolina, sign me up. Everybody in the world was going to watch that game. I would absolutely love to have a play-in game style for that 4th team for that automatic qual. If this is end up what's going to happen, and we think it is, I think a play-in game would be so much fun for the SEC.
that, two teams I think is a great conversation to have around this topic in Tennessee and Texas A&M that are going to be in that four. I bet Tennessee will be, in the 4, 5, 6 range preseason in the SEC. I haven't looked deep into the Vols yet, but we don't play each other in football this year. But
if they're 5 or 6, we got an issue, but go ahead.
Is it be better than that?
It better be. Yeah. I mean, this is a playoff team.
I know you got Nico bet. Well, that is true. I forgot about that. So let's say we'll say 3. I'll give you 3. You cool with 3? And I'd say A&M's probably at 7, maybe 6, right? Those are two teams that could be potentially in the conversation for that game, to play in that play-in game. And it would be fun. You talk about just letting two teams throw punches and lose teeth and bleed for one spot in that glorious playoff. Sign me up for that all day long, because a lot of times these SEC championship games, you're right, we're already locked. You got a team maybe playing for something and one's already locked it in, and you're like, who cares about this? Could make it a lot more fun. It wouldn't be hard to talk me into that.
Do you like the fact that, or do you think it's too greedy that the SEC and the Big Ten are basically demanding 4 automatic qualifiers for the playoffs? Because I hate it. I mean, it's like, sure, Tennessee's in the SEC, that's great, but take the best. If it's going to be 16 teams, take the best 16 teams, seed them 1 through 16. Who gives a crap about an automatic qualifier? Let one group of 5 be in there for sure, and that should be the only stipulation. I hate the fact that they're trying to go out there and have that big of a piece of the pie. I don't like it. What say you?
I agree with you. The only thing, I think the way I look at it is they are trying to make the best product they can. And even this year, we've seen some of the teams that made it in and it just didn't pan out. So I guess my response would be,
hey, one of those being from the SEC, and that was Tennessee.
Yeah, well, that's fair. But I just think we've seen this happen year in and year out. We see that team back when it was a 4-team playoff, that team from, maybe it's Pac-12, get in and then they just get steamrolled by Georgia or Bama. We've seen it for 7 or 8 years. They have to be in it because they deserve to be in it. That's the reality. But I guess, where these two powerhouse conferences are coming from and saying, you want the best product out there, put us out there. But these teams that fight, tooth and nail I think they deserve to be in this playoff, and I don't think the SEC Big Ten should get as much of that piece of pie as they want, because these teams deserve to be there, even though they might get steamrolled by one of those teams.
Yeah, they generate the most. These two conferences generate the most money, so I get it from Sankey's perspective and all that. Yeah. I'm all for. Do you need conference expansion from 12 to 14? No. Do you need it from 12 to 16? Heck no. But it's going to happen no matter what. I'd be okay with everything else that they're talking about. If you go to a 14 or 16 model for the college football playoffs, the SEC could finally, the money's right for ESPN, they'll go to a 9-game conference schedule, or maybe not go to a 9-game conference schedule, but ensure that your one Power 4 opponent in your non-conference play, you create like an SEC Big Ten challenge, and you have Tennessee play Michigan or A&M play Nebraska or whatever it is. That could be a whole lot of fun as well. I'm fine with all that stuff. I'm just not fine with the automatic qualifiers. I think that's just too much. But anyway, whole lot of fun talking football 24/7, of course, right here on Locked On Vols. And Andrew's got you over there at Texas A&M, Tennessee and Texas A&M. Going to get at it in the hardwood on Saturday. Andrew's got the Aggies winning a close one at home. I'll take the Vols. It's going to be a close one either way. It's going to be a coin flip, but it is going to be a low-scoring football-style basketball game and a top 10 showdown, and one that is very critical in terms of seeding purposes entering the SEC tournament. Andrew, appreciate it as always, man, and we'll catch up later this weekend.